MMB are back, baby. Last night they placed 5th in the second Trio Cash Cup of the season, and these guys are off to a really good start. I'm going to break down a ton of how they actually fight and how you can apply that to your own gameplay too. In this tournament, they ended up coming across Savage, Tayson and iDrop, which a lot of people were talking about shows how quickly they can clean up pro teams, but I'm going to go through that at the end of this video as well in detail and kind of see how good are these guys against equal level pro players too. So let's get into it. One of the main factors to their success is the fact that they are always controlling the fight. Trios in Fortnite, if you're the team who's defensive, boxed up, you're at a significant disadvantage to the team who's the one aggressing you, as they're the ones consistently trying to take your walls and get the good angles on you. There are way more offensive plays that you can make rather than defensive plays, so ensuring that you're always the one who's being aggressive is a great way to actually ensure you pick up more eliminations. Obviously, you can't always be aggressive because you'd just be WQing everyone in the lobby, which is actually kind of what this team does. Every single fight that they take, they are aggressive, and this picks them up so many eliminations because other players just don't know how to handle this. One of the key factors of this is always ensuring you have height in the fight. As soon as they've noticed that their opponent's near and that they're going to engage in a fight, all of them instantly just start ramping up to high ground. This doesn't have to use a ton of materials, but they just want to start the fight instantly with that high ground. This means that the players down below are immediately put in that defensive position, and then Mongraal, Mitr0 and Benji instantly can start attacking their walls and spraying them from different angles. If they don't have height in the fight at the start, most of the time they're still extremely aggressive to team up, just triple spraying, trying to knock them down as much as possible. Then just looking for any opportunity to grab high ground. Note, they don't just instantly crank and do infinite 90s into high ground to try and retake it. People do this in arena all the time, and this is such a classic mistake of how to actually just waste all of your materials and not have any way to actually play the end game out, even if you manage to win the fights out. So yes, go for height as early as possible in the fight to know that you secured it, but also don't just be stupid and infinite crank wasting all of your materials. On top of having a huge amount of aggression, this team also applies consistent pressure to the teams down below. They find great ways to single out opponents that are down there, but on top of this, they're consistently spraying ARs from all different angles, getting tag after tag after tag through the builds. This is fantastic because overall, you're going to hit way more damage on your opponents and not give them any opportunity to actually heal at all. A lot of the times, Mitr0 will be split off from Mongraal and Benji, and he'll be taking walls behind the opponents, open that up and get these big damage shots off, while Benji hits the wall, and then Mongraal's on the roof at the same time, consistently pressuring these players in the box. If you have these players consistently over and over again, just hitting on your walls, there's almost no chance that you're going to be able to actually heal or get away from them. Yet again, another great example of how the team who's aggressive is going to be having the advantage in this fight. How are you as a defensive team meant to fight off a team who's consistently spraying from every different angle when you already need to heal? It's going to be almost impossible. Their spacing and their awareness of each other is completely unmatched to almost any other trio that I've seen before. If you watch them in endgame, if you watch them in mid-game, they are so aware of where each other are that they're consistently able to back each other up if they get into a difficult situation. The same thing, if they get someone boxed, it's almost half a second before another player's there to help them out. This is something that a lot of amateur level players really struggle with. And in your trios, setting roles of who's going to be leading and who's going to be assisting in the fights is definitely something that will help out a ton of the average level players. Have one player who's going to be making decisions on where they're rotating to, and have another player go with them but go from a different angle. The third member of the team, whoever is probably the best fighter, should be left to split on their own, take some walls from behind and get off some easy eliminations. Again, you must be always aware of where your teammates are, and if you're in a really awkward situation where there's tons of enemy builds around or opportunities to box fight other players, your spacing should be very close together. A lot of teams pinch really hard and get really split and get a ton of different angles. This team does get different angles, but only once they've already beamed and they're already got the opponents boxed up and being defensive. Remember, this is a team mode. You can't have players just playing completely solo. You must be aware of where your teammates are and stay very close to them to ensure that if they need help, that other teammate is there to back them up instantly. I'd recommend practicing this by just doing this in arena and just very much so focusing on this every single fight you take, or by doing the same thing in realistic 3v3s. So I've already mentioned how they Wkey pretty much the entire lobby in this entire tournament, but once they've actually engaged these fights, how do they actually do this? I've already mentioned their great spacing and the great angles that they take. However, a lot of the times it is honestly just get in the box. They'll take individual angles, spray and get in. With these trio fights, a lot of times it's not as much of just wall replacing, placing cones, Mongraal Classic, all of this kind of stuff. It's quite literally two people spray from different angles, get in the box, hit their shots, and pick up an easy elimination very, very fast. And watching back through a lot of the top teams like Vidil, Noah Riley, and Rezon, this is actually very, very similar to how they fight as well. Big beams, and then just jump in, picking up that first elimination very, very quickly, and this turns the fight into a 3v2, which they can easily win rather than making it a 3v3. Now, one of the issues I foresee with this is how does this play against the top level pro players? Because again, you can't just jump into every pro player's box, so in these kind of super stacked finals lobbies, I'm not sure how well this will actually work. Obviously, this isn't all they do, and there's actually multiple occasions within this tournament alone where they've just done this, cycled into a box, and one of the members have been picked up. In the clip in the background, you saw Benji go down here, and if this was a stacked finals tournament, this could be the end for their team. They would leave them with just Mitr0 and Mongraal to play out the entire endgame, and this definitely shortens their longevity in that individual game. Now, obviously, this isn't what they do in every single fight. I'm not just trying to say that they just jump into every box, because let's be real, they're very aware of the player base that they're playing. They're playing a cash cup, they're not playing a stacked finals tournament. I think in the final custom stage games and in the actual FNCS finals, these guys will fight incredibly well, but I'm interested to see how their strategy will change and how the distancing and spacing that they'll keep from the opponents will change when they're fighting these top level players in comparison to fighting these lower level players. We actually already got a taste of that where they fought Tayson, iDrop, and Savage as well in one of the games from the cup. So let's get in and break down that fight and see kind of how these change from the way they've already fought the lower skilled players in the Champions Cash Cup. So this start fights with Mongraal and Benji beaming iDrop as he's actually already white since he's just been rezzed. And at the same time, Mitr0's climbing for high ground to ensure that he grabs it. He's a little bit behind but then catches up. And at this point you can see on the right hand side there's Mongraal and Benji fighting Tayson and iDrop, whereas Mitr0 comes from behind and picks up iDrop. But unfortunately, since Savage is also doing the same role, he splits off and then manages to pick up Mitr0 too. While this is happening, Tayson is fighting Mongraal and gets a big chunk of damage off and nearly picks up the elimination. But since Benji is so close, he manages to help him out, and those two 1v2 Tayson to now create a 2v1 situation where it's Benji and Mongraal versus Savage. Now, since Benji and Mongraal had such better loot, they can heal up, they both get to 200 HP, whereas Savage is just over 100. At this point, he has low materials, and the other two just go in for the elimination. And obviously, Benji's got to hit him with a little red card. What was really interesting about this fight is the fact that they said all the same principles that I've gone over today in terms of their great spacing, their great pinching, the good angles that they take. However, they didn't just psycho into the box. They were fighting a good team and they kept their spacing apart, and they recognized that just jumping straight into a box probably wasn't going to work for them, as they would just get eliminated themselves. They did start this fight with a huge advantage given iDrop was already white as he'd just been rezzed, but at the same time they've played this fight absolutely perfectly. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned a lot. I've been Reisshub. Peace!